and technology for a brighter tomorrow, and that's the theme that we're going to be revolving around. Now, as we move into this session, we're going to be inviting up, of course, a representative from Nestle, and she will be speaking, of course, to give the keynote as we move into the rest of the session. Now, a very interesting fact about this lady, a fun fact rather, is I hear that if she was not a marketing professional, she would probably be a dancer. So that was a fun fact that I managed to pick up. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like you to please put together a round of applause and give a warm welcome to Zumi Njongwe, Consumer Communications and Marketing Excellence Director of Nestle East and Southern Africa region.
Right. Good morning, everybody. Wonderful to be in Nairobi this week for the 6th edition of the Social Media Week. He's right, I would have been a dancer if I wasn't a marketer, but hey, I now do it in my spare time. Right, so if you could maybe take me from the top. The ask for me for today was for me to really come and talk a little bit about the power of the voice, and with regards to what it means to marketing. And I wanted to shift this brief a little bit, if you will allow me. As a marketer, being the custodian of a brand or an organization, one needs to have their voice clear first. Before asserting the voice of the brand or the organization, you need to be clear about what your own brand voice is. We can talk about the clarity of the tone, the character, and the language. But the brand voice does not land if we are not clear about what our voices are. And digital technologies have allowed us the space to express those voices beyond our close-knit community. Use this one instead. Am I echoing? Okay. So you've switched me off. Am I good now? How's that? Awesome. Okay, great. Yes, and therefore I think it is befitting that on Social Media Week Nairobi to discuss the power of voice by talking about how we empower our own voices. What an important topic as we work together to reimagine our world for a better tomorrow. And thank you to the organizers for inviting us here today as Nestle. My story is that I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I grew up there. But I've had the pleasure and the privilege to have explored our beautiful continent. And that has really opened me up to a world bigger than the one that I was born into. And in that process, I've found my voice. And over time, I have been learning to power it significantly enough to make my own small difference in my chosen field of marketing, as we all must do. So, again, it is a privilege for me to be in Nairobi, one of my favorite cities on the continent. We cannot overscore the fundamental shifts that the internet, the mobile phone, and the data costs have had in marketing. And over the last 3 decades, much of this we know has exponentially grown when social media became part of our human existence. As the saying goes, it has been the best of times, and it also has been the worst of times. The first truth to remember is that the power does not only reside in you and I. It now belongs to all of us, as crowd culture plays a big role in driving conversations that bypass our brands, truly bypass them. The second truth is that there isn't a formula that holds for too long. The speed of change is constant. Cookies are going to vanish, as you know. Algorithms have given us the runaround and will continue to do so. Facebook is getting rid of its face recognition feature. Elon Musk will sneeze again, and cryptocurrencies will rise and they will fall, depending on how hard he sneezes. Yes, you get my drift. The point is, change is the only constant. We are constantly reimagining our technologies to tell better stories. So how do you empower your voice in this moment that is always in flux? And what does that look like for you, the marketer, either seasoned or novice? So I have some thoughts that I'd like to share today. Can you see, what has happened to my slideshow? There you go, thank you. So the first thing I'm gonna share with you is the importance of clarifying your purpose. I mean your purpose and the brand's purpose. This is both for yourself and for your brand because it really matters. The meeting point of these two layers of purpose is fertile ground for defining and building a legacy. In this discipline, we marketers reflect humanity. We progress society and we predict the future. And that purpose really, if you don't have it, will make your work ring hollow and beget communication programs that are not really enduring over time. When you have your own strong personal compass or a purpose, it means it makes you feel the urgency for you to do your part in driving change in your life. My own personal purpose is to lead from the heart to create the change that I want to see. What is yours? The second point I want to make is how you need to find your inflection point. It generally comes in when you go against the grain, right? Therefore, do not fear to do so in your own careers. For me, my inflection point was when I became the first Black marketing director for a previous company that I worked for. This point in my career really opened my eyes to the importance of context and progression. For us in South Africa, as many of you will know, transformation is a big issue, right? Particularly from a racial point of view. And so it was important that in driving that conversation of my changes, I started to come into a role that was much bigger than myself. My success was then the success of everyone else who looked like me, who had never imagined that shift in decision-making power in a business like that. It amplified their understanding of the possibilities for people that look like me in that discipline. Your context might be different. Yours might be gendered. Yours might be about your immigrant status. Others might be about ageism, young or old. We all have a context. In yours, what is your inflection point? Ensuring that you have a team, colleagues, peers that can bolster your areas of growth because they see you striving for much more. They need to be able to be social multipliers or teachers of who you can be so that when you bring your best self to the game, so do they. And that really is an important way of finding your voice. Your inflection point requires introspection and thought about what will it be in relation to your purpose, right? Because in my purpose, which was creating the change, leading from the heart to creating the change that I wanted to see, I knew that that inflection point was that transformational change in my leadership business. And that also is a big part of growing your powerful, unique voice that nobody else can do. The next one I'm going to talk about is this authenticity, right? And authenticity is about honesty and not just about sounding honest. It's not about sounding real or simply using the right words, etc., or as marketers like to say, whitewashing the game. But it is about being really honest. We know that we know this very well. We have laughed out loud to Uganda's Kansime Anne, one of my favorites, Kenya's very own Elsa Majimbo, Nigeria's own Yvonne Orji. I mention these women because these are pioneer comedians, and they are some of their most authentic comedic content has come out of them, right? And this really has powered who they are and their own voices. They don't duplicate what other people are doing. We at Nestle are also on a journey to really driving ourselves to living our purpose. And our purpose at Nestle, for those who are wondering, is to unlock the power of food, to enhance the quality of life today and for generations to come. Through reviewing our own value chain and ensuring that we are driving our own new program called RE, which stands for Rethink, Reduce, and Repurpose, our brands are striving to ensure they build a sustainable future for our communities and for our planet and for our consumers. So what we're trying to say is we're not just trying to talk the talk, but we are really putting in tangible actions that will make a difference. I'll give examples in a little bit, in a little while, so that you see what it is to talk about authenticity. The next point I want to make is how we need to have a clear point of view as marketers. And when we don't, to be clear that we're still deliberating on these areas. You are not the only one like you. No one else has the same ideas as you, but they also have their own ideas, right? So you need to be secure in your own truth and lean into your own experiences. Know that your point of view exists in a world where other points of views have a right to be. We can shape society through the right representation in our marketing work. I have made many mistakes in this place when I wasn't clear on my point of view, yeah? And if I had to tell you about them, I'm sure we'd be here all day. But really, some of the mistakes that I've made around depicting and perpetuating gender-based stereotypes. We know these stereotypes, right? Ladies and gentlemen, we've lived them. And so in growing up in my skill and in my experience, I have really become much more conscious of this. Having kids, I've got 2 beautiful kids, has also made me very focused. If you can move. Has also made me very focused around the mindset that I experience, right? And you know, when you see your life through your children's eyes, you get a fresh perspective. It's very liberating. And you think to yourself, what am I doing in my role, in my job, in my career that is perpetuating these stereotypes that I don't want my children to grow up into? So at Nestle, we believe our success as an organization is interwoven with society's success and can only thrive when it has a healthy, diverse, and engaged workforce that reflects the society that we want to live in. For this reason, we enable actions by putting diversity and inclusion at the heart of our business. This is our clear point of view. And it is against this backdrop that as part of driving our consumer connections journey through our brands, we launched a fantastic campaign in South Africa, it's not here yet, on the Maggie brand. I think a lot of you will know it. The campaign is called Open Up the Kitchen. This campaign reflected on how women have a disproportionate workload at home, even as they do their professional careers. And this has resulted in some of them feeling quite constrained about always having to provide for the family when they get home. And this can be a burden to how they view the kitchen. It also looked at how some men enjoy cooking and enjoy being in the kitchen, but because of some subcultures who don't appreciate that, it can be frowned upon. So the campaign aims to break down the stereotype, the misconception that only one person in the home should be the person that does all the cooking. We are all have a say. We all can have a say in cooking and help each other out. Cooking should be fun. It should be an opportunity to bond and be enjoyed by as many people as possible, especially those who like it, not determined by gender. And in doing so, we should leave behind this idea of perfection, perfect recipes, perfect measurements, perfect Instagrammable images, but really to step inside, try our hand at it. And because where there's more hands cooking, there's more flavor to every meal. So this was our clear point of view to bring to our consumers in helping to drive and grow this wonderful brand. But it had a clear point of view. Some people agree, some people don't. That's okay. That's okay. You have to have a clear point of view. Because if you sit in the middle of the fence, you just become vanilla ice cream. Boring. So that's what I'm going to say on that. Have a clear point of view. Listen up and do so actively. Listening is key to empowering your voice. On one end, receive feedback from your audiences. That's simple. And secondly, listen actively. Recognize where societal shifts are going and where they are coming from. Mine those insights. We talk about insights all the time in marketing, but we want to mine those cultural insights and moments and let them influence our voice as we build our brands. For instance, a new trend that is driving book sales is something called Book Talk. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. A community of TikTok which does literary reviews of books. The only thing is that they do it on TikTok and it's like 1 minute long, right? And it's generally based on how emotionally connected you were to that book. And what other print publications have not learned to pick up on this trend and go with it. For example, the Paris Review, which just has been struggling to keep up with print sales because they're not seeing the shift in the zeitgeist of life. Change is constant, and we need to listen and actively understand the implications of all of those changes. The next one is really to lead from a place of learning and not from a place of knowledge. You learn how to ask the right questions, not how to always be having the right answer. Again, because we don't all have the right answers. Marketing is a dialogue now. It's not just about brands having all the answers. It is about inviting our audiences in to co-create those answers for brands to implement, scale, support, or acknowledge. When we approach engagement from a place of learning, we collaborate and we create shared value with our communities. And as such, we build strong relationships that are nearly unshakable. Social listening has really helped us marketers to get closer to real life. So we must ensure we get out from outside of our air-conditioned offices to constantly learn and relearn what our consumers need and want. What is that saying? The office is a dangerous place from which to become a great marketer. Be self-aware and be prepared. Know who you are, lean into it, and then add the fire. Like with Will Smith once said, and I'm sure you guys have heard this, he said, you know, I may not be one of the greatest talents in the world, but I'm one of the most hard-working actors you'll ever come across. I will outwork anybody to the ground. Yeah? That hones and builds your skill set. And that is really important. Like Brené Brown said, we've got to lean into our vulnerabilities and to be resilient and persistent. Being resilient does come with skills development, plus effort, plus experience. Ensure that you are as prepared as you can be to be able to work through the fear of expressing your unique point of view. Recognize your behavior and connect it to both your local culture, which you know, and the global shifts that are happening around you. This means you have to expand your world through reading. Read as much as you can. I always encourage my children to read. Read stuff you don't normally read. If you like romance novels, and read something else to augment that, because it expands your mind. Get into discussions with people who are as bright or smarter than you, because they teach you a lot. Learn to keep a broad perspective into what it is that you want to be. Are you following other marketing leaders on LinkedIn? Are you coming onto the workshops, hearing what they talk about? I often listen to CMOs. Every time a CMO is speaking somewhere, I try and dial in when my diary allows me to do that. Because guess what? As experienced as I am, I always learn something new. So that, for me, is very important, to be prepared, yeah? Because that's where you feel that even in your fear, you are able to still express yourself because your perspective is broad, yeah? And really, as I said, the world is big, and we have to be able to ensure we know where humanity is going to next. You will make mistakes, guys and girls. You will make mistakes, and that's okay. Just recognize them early and apply those learnings to keep moving forward. As I said, we are all not immune to those mistakes. Right, then I want to move to my next point. Diversifying your point of view, kind of touched on it already. Surround yourself with numerous points of view. Don't only surround yourself with yes men and women. Surround yourself with people who disagree with you vehemently, have different points of view, because it really is exciting. Different backgrounds and countries and tribes and genders and all sorts of things, young and old. It teaches you a lot. So these really are the 8 tips I've learned to be key in powering your own voice. I will leave you with a few considerations to augment what I've just shared with you, and to keep this in mind as you apply these learnings into yourself and to your careers. I'm assuming there's a lot of marketers in the room, but whatever your careers might be, these are still relevant. And they'll speak to more, these ones that I'll share, these considerations will speak to the future lens of where we are going as well. I'm going to start with my favorite, shared value. Right. As marketers, what is our voice in delivering great end-to-end shared value to all of our stakeholders? Ours is not only to think about consumers anymore. No longer can we look at our industry as, and roles as disconnected from the society in which we live, the communities in which we exist, and the environments in which we operate. And really, there are some areas that you can think about in this place. One is to reconceive our brands and our portfolios. Are they good for our consumers? And what more could we do to make them better, if anything? We have indulgent categories at Nestle, but the way we talk about them has to be in a responsible way. The second thing is, have we redefined our productivity in the value chain? Again, we have a role as marketers to input and ensure what we sell is actually worth selling and can be disposed of properly. Do we know as marketers what are the ingredients that go into my product? Are they clean? Are they responsibly sourced? There was no child labor used in them. Is our packaging sustainable, and can it be disposed of? Those are all areas that we can partner with our procurement and our supply team to make sure that we are reconceiving what our brands mean, and that is about shared value. Not only caring about selling something for the bottom line, but caring about the end-to-end value chain and its impact in our world. The third thing is we can build supportive industries in the partners that we work with, our agencies, our sourcing partners, and creating and driving circular economy models. So we must ask ourselves, what does it look like to be an accountable actor in this moment where we ought to be having clear points of view on various issues that affect people's lives? How do our corporate purposes capture those points of view? And how do those filter into our portfolios, our brands, our activations, our communications? And how do we, as marketers, encourage our businesses to embed the tenets of purpose into their narratives? And how do we measure and control that our brands put in to ensure that we are able to measure that responsibility? A good example that I'll share in this area here in Nairobi, the team has got a fantastic program called My Yobu, which stands for My Own Business. What they do is they hire young entrepreneurs. They are recruited and enabled with a startup kit to run their own coffee vending businesses across various locations. Maybe some of you might have seen them, and they hold these big kits on their back and they sell coffee. They're in Nairobi, they're in Mombasa and Kisumu. Since 2014, this initiative has created over 1,000 jobs, with each of them earning a decent living. These were people who were unemployed, anything between $100 to $700 per month for a 4 p.m. to a 9 p.m. job. Nestle supports them through training, teaching them about entrepreneurship, developing their kitchens, business training and coaching. Over 550 of those sellers and operators have gone on to college and to finish university, while others have diversified their business beyond coffee. They've started other businesses as well. And that's what I mean by shared value. By the way, we also sell more coffee because we're in business, right? Yeah, we're not a CSI initiative, but it's shared value. There's benefit for us, there's benefit for the community, there's benefits for those families, that those 550 people who are now, graduates, and they can start to change the narrative of their own realities. Love that example. So well done to the Kenya team. So that's really important. Marketers have to think about what is the shared value you are bringing beyond just selling a product. Generation Z will demand it of you if you don't know. They are doing it already, and they will expose you if you are exploitative. The next one I want, another favorite of mine, I think I'm going to say this on every slide, right, is inclusion and difference. Do you know who your people truly are? Not only the ones who enjoy your products and brands, but the ones who influence their culture. Who are the people around them who make up their communities? At Nestle, we center inclusion in determining of our audiences. Again, I'll bring it to life. For any engagement, we look to do with parents, for example. We run a program, it's called Nestle for Healthier Kids, where we teach parents how to inculcate good eating habits to their children so that they grow up knowing it. They say you must bend them young, right? You bend the stick while it's young. Our focus is broad and inclusive of different contexts. So instead of just what we're doing now, what we used to do is just talk to mothers, because, mothers were the ones who were known to raise the kids. But what kind of narrative is that saying to fathers in the African continent? Also, it is not taking into consideration that families in Africa are not just the unique mom and dad. We've got other caregivers, grandmothers, childminders, relatives who look and bring up our children. And so in the work we do creatively, we are now starting to bring all of those into the fore so that we show that it does indeed take a village to raise the next generation. And we connect with that village. And therefore, know your people, know what is going on in their lives, and include them in word and in deed. Audience first. Oh, another one, actually, just while you wait there, that I'm very passionate about in South Africa is, inclusion of older women in the narrative. It seems like when you hit 40, you stop existing in this world. All influencers are 20, skinny and beautiful, or they are handsome and still 25. I have asked that my team make sure that is not the case, because that is not the society we live in. I want to see influencers over 40. I want to see influencers who are 50. I want to see fabulous male, female, LGBTI, can I say that in Nairobi? LGBTI representatives. I want big women, thin women, curvy women, so that we see inclusion and belonging in everything we do. You guys know Dove has done this exceptionally well. We have to catch up, marketers. Watch the language you are sending your children when all they ever see is a beautiful 25-year-old, thin, light-skinned woman. That is not the value that we should be bringing, because we have a role to play. We have a role to play. The next one is audience-first thinking in our communication, instead of just mass marketing. What cultural shifts are happening in the world your brand exists in? Digital has made communication much more complex, actually. And capturing our consumers' attention is now harder than it has ever been before. So now, when we engage with them, we have to be really meaningful, set in the context they find themselves in, and very relevant. In other words, be able to create the value exchange that they need. No one is interested in just hearing about your brand benefits. Who cares? Yeah? They're interested in their stories. They're interested in what's happening in culture, in concerts and movies. And your brand can be part of the story or not. But don't tell them directly about your brand. We must indeed strive to be of value versus just trying to sell stuff. We must build brands that transcend salience and into loyalty. Brands that tell stories and are engaging in creating great experiences. So think about what kind of data sets do you have to track those cultural shifts that are allowing you to get to a granular knowledge of your consumers, and in a timeless manner. Do you have systems set up to ensure that your data is fresh, feeds back into your strategies and tactics in line with that? How is it helping you to refine your voice? We are looking at how we can tailor nutrition, for example, for different kinds of consumers and their needs through this kind of audience-first thinking. We've got a calculator now on a brand called Nido that you can profile your child with, and it'll give you suggestions about what kind of menu would be good for your child that is different to what is good for my child. Audience-first thinking, personalization at scale. Yeah, that's exciting. Versus saying the same thing to me that you're saying to a million other people, hoping it sticks to 1% of them. It also helps us with the best use of our marketing budgets. Last one, I think this is my last one. Again, one of my favorites. Brands as an economic multiplier. Brands that have meaning and sell more. That's just the truth of it. Dove sells more because it means something to women, and so on. And so we need to think about our consumers choosing us with their hard-earned money. Why should they choose us? What value do you bring apart from what's inside your can, your pouch, your tin, your whatever it is? Of course, like I said, we are in business, but this can be linked to other benefits too. How can you bring experiences to your brands that matter? How can it bring value up and down the value chain? And of course, you can tell these stories more persuasively through multiple touch points. What is the economic benefit of that you bring to your suppliers, who bring you your ingredients, who bring you your packaging? What does it bring to your partners or your partnerships? And what opportunities are there for end-of-use partnerships as well? Is how your brand built, is how you're dynamic enough to allow for that evolution, to guarantee relevance all the time and differentiation. Another final example I'm going to share from Kenya again is this wonderful plan called the Nescafe plan. Nescafe is a coffee, as you know, and it was launched in 2011 in partnership with an external service provider. We are big on partnerships in Nestle because guess what? We know we can't do everything on our own. And what we did is we focused on training of coffee farmers, right? The guys who really make the bean, and looked at good agricultural practices and good processing practices. Women were a big part of these farmers. Their yields were very low though. That was the problem. And we had the right expertise and the agronomists who could help them to grow their businesses. They got financial literacy, responsibly sourced coffee certification, etc. And this drove economic value down the stream for these farmers as well. As Nestle, as Nestle and the industry, because the coffee industry started to grow faster, their yields really grew from around 2.5 yield to around 7 kilograms per yield. And those who fully adopted the plan grew to 13 kilograms per yield. And that's a great story. That's a great story to tell. Not only can they sell those yields to more customers, they make more money, and then it has a ripple effect in their communities. Earning the power of your voice is a journey, everybody, and not a destination. So enjoy the journey. Apply to the brands you work on is not only possible, but it is really compelling, and it will be very fruitful. Unless the purpose conversation is clear, let's inspire each other to ensure our authentic African voices play a meaningful role in shaping marketing and in shaping our future. Asante.
One more round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Zumi Njongwe. Now, yesterday I mentioned that this is the perfect platform for insights, best practices, and someone mentioned that it is a melting pot of some of the greatest minds that we may have not yet recognized as such. And I believe just with that keynote speech, so many key pointers that have set the note and set the tone for what we are going to go through next, which is a plenary session that is, of course, being hosted by Nestle, that is called The Power of Your Voice. And at this particular time, I'd like to call up the moderator, who is Caroline Mbarire, the digital marketing lecturer from Simon Page Institute, to come up as she will also introduce the rest of the panelists. A round of applause for her, please.
Good morning to you all. Yes. So my name is Caroline Mbarire, and I'll be the facilitator of this session. A digital marketing lecturer at Simon Page, and I've been doing these lectures for some years now. I've also worked with corporates and also agency, and digital media is my passion. Other than that, I'm also very passionate about social impact and at scale. I love my family. I love dogs. and they also love Jesus. Yes, so without further talk, I'd like to invite the panelists. We'll have Millicent, Eva, Kevin, and Felipe Pogola. So you will come and do a round of introduction. I think we can have Eva, can come as you, do an introduction. Eva, Millicent, So thank you.
Morning, everyone. My name is Eva Marikia. I am the Chief Executive Officer of the East African Venture Capital Association. So probably the only non-marketer, but my role is largely marketing as a CEO of the representing company. What we do, we are the umbrella body for private equity and venture capital firms investing across 5 markets of East Africa, and we represent cumulatively about $4 billion in assets under management for investing in East Africa. So that's me on the day job. I am also a trained communication person, ventured off into finance at some point, focusing on investor relations, largely bringing corporate capital or institutional capital into private and public businesses. I also love dogs. I'm a mother of 3 dogs. There's a lot for us to do. And I think above all, part of the reason I'm here is to amplify the youth voice for economic inclusion. And so we talked about inclusion as being a core aspect of marketing. At least for me who works largely in the private capital space, we see a lot of older people in the room. It's not often that we get the youth voice represented, which is rather ironic because we are the largest consumers, we are the largest workforce, and we are the largest drivers of innovation. So I'll park my chat for now and pass the mic to the next person, but it's such a delight to be here, and thanks for having me.
Cool. Good morning, everyone. My name is Millicent Muigai, and I'm here as a CEO, in my capacity as a CEO of Mom's Village, so it's nice to sit next to another female CEO. That's encouraging. And we are a digital platform that speaks to pregnant women and mothers, and our main mission is to empower them to make informed decisions. So if a mom is able to read an article on our site or buy a product and it solves her need, then our job is done. When I'm not a CEO, I enjoy cooking. I really like delicious food. I love Jesus, so I spend time reading the Bible. And I have been in digital for many years, so I spend a lot more time than I should online. So I'm glad to be here.
Morning, everyone. Is it morning? Okay. Yes, it is morning. My name is Kevin Kamau. I am a passionate brand builder. I am passionate about using media and experiential marketing to build brands. I am here in the capacity of the head of operations for Moonsun Pictures, which is a company that uses influencers and uses content as a channel to bridge the gap between brands and the consumers that they're targeting. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Good morning. So my name is Felipe Pogola, and it's actually a pleasure to be back in Nairobi after a sabbatical and coming to a tech event. Felipe Pogola is the founder of Digital Humanitarian. Digital Humanitarian is a social good startup which champions the use of social media for good. I'm one of the UN social good, global UN social good ambassadors, and I've won a presidential award for doing good on social media. And today I'm just here to talk about how do we use social media for good, because that's an element which is normally forgotten when we're talking about technology. I'm a father of two sons, and I also have 2 dogs, 2 goldfish, 2 cats, and yeah.
Thank you. So I'll take it up from there. In terms of the dogs, the breed, I own Rottweilers, 3 of them as a family, and I've also come with my twin sister in quotes, Yeah, other than that, let me just delve into the brief of the session. So it's the power of voice, yeah? So times are rapidly changing, and now we live in a democratic age where each voice, each opinion, each individual's art, and each story is equally important as getting an education. Voices convey passion and excitement. Voices can convey anything, whether it's a feeling, a place, or an idea. In a way, voices are a superpower if you know how to use it. So voices can be used to create change. Yes, we all agree with that. People can take away anything material from you, but your voice is one of the things that cannot be taken away. The audacity to speak up is a driving force towards impacting positive change and challenging the status quo on both personal level, business level, company level, in your capacities. The power of a dream also lies beneath the power of your voice. The power of a dream also lies beneath the power of your voice. By voice, meaning impactful actions to shape the state of the society, or rather challenging conversations around topics of interest. Speaking up can be in the case of sharing ideas, questioning other people's idea. I mean, as in the words of Zumi, that you should surround yourself with people that you disagree with vehemently. So that's how you actually learn, and that's how you embrace other people's differences. So yeah, and it's our collective duty to use our voice to speak and influence the world. Some of the major areas of focus in this era are empowerment of youth, mothers, and women in general. So now I'll just delve now into the questions now to the panelists. So I'll start off with Philip and Eva, and I want them now to answer this question. In your years of experience, or even based on your human interactions, or even the news or the brands you represent, how can you say your voice or art or story has impacted the society? We can start with Philip and then Eva.
That's a very good question. You know, when Zumi was talking, I was just listening, and I'm like, she was talking to me personally, as in, when you surround yourself with people who challenge and inspire you, the digital space gives us a spectrum where you can learn from both local and the global spectrum. As a digital humanitarian for the last 11 years, I've used my voice to be a voice of change. And it's something which I picked, because when you look at the digital space, people are focusing on probably they're pushing their brands as influencers, but very rare do we get people who actually push stuff for good. So I've used my voice to not only bring change in government. For those who didn't know, that last year I managed the Ministry of Health during the COVID pandemic. So at times when you look at the youth in Kenya, most of them actually have a voice. But how do they tap their voice? How do they harness their voice? You'll find most of the times their voice is actually abrasive. So we, the early adopters, need to actually also support such voices. So I used my voice actually to support and complement government agencies, from government ministries, government parastatals, the NGOs, and it's not been easy. So my voice has been in the humanitarian space, where we've seen so much death, we've seen so much grief, and this is an area which normally most people don't talk about. So when you look at the digital space, especially after COVID, this is the time to actually raise our voices. Because COVID left a trail of trauma. Most people have gone through grief, most people have gone through a lot of trauma, a lot of stigma at work. So this is a time to actually raise our voice and speak. And when you speak from the bottom of your belly, you actually inspire more people. So I think the power of voice is very, very important, especially for Africans. And there's one thing as Africans, we don't tell our stories, where we only focus on the negative. When you get to go beyond Africa and look at Africa from the diaspora, you get to see the kind of content we share. We share negativity, we share poverty, we share corruption, we really get to share our resilience, we really get to share our intellectual muscle. And that's the voice which we can actually use. So I think the power of voice is very, very important, where we as Africans, we as Kenyans can actually now start telling our stories better. When you're pushing a product, don't just focus on the product, focus on our cultures, focus on our integrity, focus on our human interaction, and that's the voice which I think we are not tapping as young entrepreneurs.
Just to pick up on where Faith has left off, I'll tell mine from a personal perspective and also from a corporate as a head of an association. Now,
see, but also then the purpose or the objective that we're setting out to do with this item or agenda. And how that translates is as I get into corporate and at the C-suite, there's not very many people of my age. There's even fewer women. So imagine being a woman and young at that. A lot of the times you get things like, can you take the minutes? I'm like, why? So if you think there's a legitimate reason, maybe you're the secretary to the board, then that makes sense. You can take the minutes. Otherwise, if you don't give me a good enough reason, you're contributing to suppressing a voice, and I'm just not there for it. So that's one way I have helped in putting my voice across, and hopefully by doing that, creating change around the people that I work with, socialize with, network with, to be conscious of the why and create a clear enough objective that is accommodative for all. So when I joined the East Africa Venture Capital Association, one of my missions at the time was to amplify the African story. I work in investment. A lot of our capital is still foreign capital, largely from the US and Europe. And it gets to a point, especially if I use the context of the last year, where a lot of governments are shrinking their funds in development because even they at home have their own needs. We have to ask, who's going to finance the projects in Kenya? Who's going to finance the entrepreneurs that have relied on foreign VC, right? And when I came in, my drive was, I need to mobilize and localize the investment scene in East Africa and Kenya by virtue of where I'm from. So maybe that's the other thing I should have said about myself. I am very big on telling the African story. And Zumi talked about having a personal purpose that merges with the corporate purpose. My personal purpose is seeing Africa defining the shape of global economics. And so if we get our own capital to invest in our own businesses, there's no reason we shouldn't have an African equivalent of a Facebook, right? We have the Silicon Savannah, which is in Kenya. I think, first of all, you need to do away with the word silicon because it's other people's. Let's just have Savannah or call it Kansas City for where it's at. We don't, then they can define San Francisco for Kansas City, SF. So that's the other thing. My passion being to tell the African story. When I sit on a corporate platform, it's to merge with the realities of the environment and see how can I then use that personal purpose of amplifying Africa to create opportunities within the local scene. And consequently, we've done quite a bit of work in mobilizing local money from insurance, pension funds, to even startup investing, so that we're seeing a lot more investment going into early stage entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, Kenyans, East Africans, that is actually coming from our own society. And it's still a journey, but that's one way where we use the voice to change the perception of Africa and hopefully change our position in the world.
Thank you. Well explained. So what are some of the learnings that you may convey to others regarding power of using your voice, the learnings and impact, and mothers and technology? Millicent.
Thanks, that's a great question. So from my capacity in running Moms Village is we represent, I guess, the corporate voice for pregnant women and mothers. Because when we started, finding local content online was very hard. And even like written articles are a voice from either an expert or from a real mother sharing her story, or from a woman who's trying to get pregnant, who's trying to have a child. So in terms of just being able to consolidate that information, then we're able to give those women a voice through that content. And then as we continue to build our communities, they started talking back to us. Because initially when we started, it was us presenting the information. They give the feedback. They're like, this is not realistic. This is not local enough. This place closed. I don't know, this salon is too expensive. So we started listening to the mother's voice as well. So it really shaped the way we built our business. It really shaped the way we built our communities. In terms of for the young people, I guess from personal experience is, I wish I listened more when I was in the youth bracket, because the things I know now, if I just listened more, those years, those formative years, I would have learned so much. And so what I'd say to young people is, listen more. I know, like, when I think Zumi was talking about Gen Z, is like they know their rights. They are so opinionated. And it's really lovely to see because they speak up more than I could when I was their age. But just listen more. Let me tell you, 10 years from now, if you're in your 20s, remember this statement, just listen more. And then for parents, I think Eva had shared about how when she was growing up, her voice wasn't suppressed. So I would say allow your children to speak up, correct them when you know that they're doing wrong or you want to set them on the right path. And also, they're observing what you're doing. So there are kids who, if you're at a party, there's something they'll do, you'll just know, hiyo ni ya nyumba yenyu. So just be mindful of what you say, be mindful of the words you speak, be mindful of the actions you do, because your kids are watching. And because I'm here representing mothers, and there are villagers here in the room, I've seen a few of you. I know you can attest to this, that when you're sharing your stories about what your kid did today, or what they learned in school, or the story they told you, when you pay attention, how they tell you the story will tell you the influence you've had on them. So the way they'll exclaim, or the way I don't know, there are certain words you hear like, hey, that was me yesterday. So be very mindful of what you do. And I guess I'll finish with, because I said I'm a lover of Christ, the book of James is a lovely book. If you want to be given a reality check, those 5 chapters in that book are incredible. So there's a verse in the first chapter, I think verse 19, that says, be slow to get angry, be slow to speak, be quick to listen. And I think it's so powerful because the more you listen, when you speak, people will stop to hear what you have to say. So I guess that gives you that power of that voice.
Thank you so much. So listen more and do it more actively. I think that is the key takeaway from that. And yeah, you can also read the book of James. So how do you use platforms to amplify the power of your voice? Kevin?
Okay, that's a very good question. Thanks a lot. I think the first thing I'd want to say is that you'd have to be aware of what platforms exist. I think there's still lack of awareness in terms of what platforms exist, especially when you start looking at the age groups, and people assume that particular platforms, or if they've heard of them, these platforms are for a particular age group, which I think is a very wrong approach, because these platforms are available for free, and it is important to be aware which platforms are available and what is the format that is suitable for these particular platforms. So you've got platforms that are as popular as Facebook, Instagram, which is clearly your picture, sort of your picture kind of format platform. And then you've got YouTube, which has been there, which is more of your video long format platform. You've got more fun platforms like TikTok, which initially were for fun, but now, as you can see, you've got the opportunity to use them for educating your target audience. You've also got WhatsApp, which I think, to some extent, it could mean more to your cause than sharing funny memes. I also feel a bit sad that funny memes get more traction on WhatsApp than information about what you really want to share. But I think it's how the message is passed. So I think WhatsApp is also a very important platform, because what I would want to say specifically for WhatsApp is everyone that looks at your WhatsApp profile probably knows you. So you've got more chances of converting them and getting them to listen to your message before pretty much anybody else on any other platform. Also not forgetting, you've got Twitter, which is feared because of KOT. People are very worried to explore Twitter because of the fear that if you express yourself, this is what's going to happen. So how do you use these particular platforms to advance when it comes to the power of voice? Number one, you need to know what the goal is. You need to be very clear, because the one thing that social media respects is consistency. So if your goal keeps changing every now and then, that's going to be a problem. So you need to be very clear on what's my goal for passing this particular, for getting onto social media, or what do I want to communicate? What do I want to achieve? And then you can get onto choosing what format you want to pass the message in. For example, like I would say, if your message or your format is clearly on text, then you might choose a more text-based platform. which to some extent could be blogs to some extent. If it's videos, YouTube works for you. But then again, all of these platforms work together. They complement each other if you use them in the right way. Because, for example, you could be wanting people to head to your YouTube channel, but then again, they're more keen on IG because that's where your target audience is, but then they need to see a snippet of what they're going to see on YouTube, on Instagram. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I would say. And in finishing on this point is, the other thing would be to be very clear on the target audience and know where exactly they are, because if you don't know where your target audience is, then you might be speaking to a whole lot of people that don't care for the message.
Thank you for that. So create, when it comes to platform, you should be led by the formats, you should be led by the target audience, and because I believe the user mindset is different for each platform. So I believe like how you log in to LinkedIn, the kind of information that you want to gather or have on your screen is not the same information that you're looking for on Twitter or on TikTok. So as a brand, as a business, when you're using the online platforms, so have that in mind. So create with the user mindset in mind. So next question is to Philip, Kevin, and Eva, and it's still a challenge to impact change though using your voice or your art or your story, especially in Africa. Do you think we are at the level where the state of freedom of expression is at its peak? If no, what do you think are the barriers that need to be addressed by the nation collectively to ensure a rich, much more productive society? So we'll start off with Philip.
I think the first barrier is we don't have frameworks to actually guide the youth, where you'll find that there's a lot of talk of technology on how there's an uptake, but when you look at from the school level, from the university level, we don't have digital literacy classes. So you find like most of the digital content creators are self-taught. How about we start mentoring our youths from the early age, where they get to tap on their creativity, they get to know their voice. When you look at the current context online, it's kind of, there's a youth bulge of the current Gen Z are very tech savvy, very innovative, but cyber foolish. So we're living in a generation where parents have no idea of the digital footprint of their children, and even this generation don't know that their digital footprint can actually affect them later in life. So how about we tap on this generation and teach them ways? So I think that the first barrier is to have digital literacy classes in schools, where social media can be accepted as a communication tool. I think that's one of the biggest barriers actually in Kenya and Africa. And also when you look at, we don't have like a joint communications across all board. When you're talking about, let's say, technology, you'll find probably company A talking about their products. We don't talk about joint communication where we get the UN talking with the government, to get the private sector talking with the government, to get the youth jumping in. So I think there's need where we can also include the youth voice in some of these innovations, where it's actually included to actually bring in change. I think that's actually going to bring in change. And then there's a new audio social spectrum which is not being tapped in. As in, we are moving from the text-based kind of communication to an audio kind of communication, where audio is the new spectrum. Audio is the new interface. But you'll find brands are focusing more on text-based kind of communication, where the world is moving to audio. Because audio brings in vibrancy, brings in emotional hook. I think that's where we actually need to go as Africans, where we focus on more audio-based kind of interaction where, and I'll give an example. For the last 6 months, I've got businesses through audio, where you meet with the CEO, they hear you talk on a Twitter, on an audio social platform like Twitter or Clubhouse, and they get to hear your voice, they come to your DM, and you start chatting. That's now when you send the email. So audio is actually changing how you're actually going to pitch. So I think one of the biggest education we need to have in Africa is to actually have digital literacy, where people get to understand how they can tap on these this is the social media spaces and to actually use it better to not only tell our stories better as African, but also amplify our brands.
Well, I think the question, if I got it right, was whether we are at a place where we are free in using digital. Now, as one who interacts regularly with governments across the continent, I'll say some countries have better luck than others, and seeing as we are in Social Media Week Nairobi, I'd say we should count ourselves among the lucky ones, that we don't get internet turned off every time there's an election. When Safaricom, what do you call that, cables go down, they send press releases of apologies, and shout out to the Safaricom, I see their sponsors here, right? I mean, in terms of freedom of expression, the reason KOT is so strong is because we have been able to capture and use the voice of the presumably young Kenyans on Twitter to share an opinion, even if it's contrarian, and hold people accountable. From KOT, we've had companies apologize. We've had multinationals apologize to their KOT. CNN comes to mind, right? So in the sense that of freedom, we are fairly, we have our rights. And I remember one time I was in a neighboring country and we were having a conference such as this one, and the government shut down the internet. And my offices are in Kenya. I was hosting an event in the different country, and I had no way to communicate with my team in Kenya. And the reason for the internet shutdown had nothing to do with my conference, actually. But imagine the multiplier effect it has on any entrepreneur who relies on the digital space for trade or for business development, whatever. So the fact that we have internet at our tips and we can use it to to share our voice, but also to grow products and innovate, makes this one of the best countries to have. And in my true spirit as an investor, it's the reason venture capital is coming with big flows into Kenya, maybe compared only to Nigeria and South Africa. This is the third largest country of VC investment just because of the tech enablement that the ecosystem has provided. Now, like Phil said, you get the power, you have to use it responsibly. So I think that's the part that we now need to harness as corporates and as people who continuously work with the youth. Some of you are influencers within the digital space, and you have somehow crafted the etiquette for your own spaces. Maybe it's about time to create programs that you can then pass along to the incoming generation, so that even as we use this space, and I think it's the future marketplace for sure, we are getting rid of shops and banks as people move digital. How do we then approach that platform with the right etiquette? Because at the end of the day, people will do business with with the people they perceive to be socially responsible. So how do we create that social responsibility? And I pass that along to the people in this room who are well versed than I am in creating such kind of programs.
Thank you for that. Parenting in an era of technology and an era of freedom, to be who you are, how can you help your children nurture their voice in a civilized way? Emphasis on understanding the digital space as parents as it mirrors to your children. We can have Millicent and Zumi answer this.
Sure, I can go first. So I think Philip had said something earlier about, do you know what your kids are doing online? So I'd say it's the benefit of technology nowadays is probably if there's a problem that's there, you're able to solve it using technology, or you can ease the problem using technology. So there are apps that you're able to install in your, nowadays people have smart TVs, in your smart TVs, in your phones, in your tablets, in your computers, depending on the number of devices you have in your home, that allow you to, one, monitor what your kids are looking at online. And I know that's a whole other discussion for another day, but I feel like if you're a parent and your child is under 18, there's a certain leeway you have to still find out what they're doing. And so there are apps that allow you to do that. There are websites that allow you to find out the kind of movies they want to watch. What are they about? Are they for the right age? Do they have the right content? Will my child be messed up or will be helped by watching this movie? So I think for parents, the responsibility is to find out We are in a technology age, we're in a digital age. Our kids are going to be online, whether they do it from our house or from the neighbor's, I don't know, device or from school. And so our responsibility is to be able to be sure, how do we make sure we know what they're doing? And if they encounter something that they don't understand, what's our level of communication where they can come to us with a problem or come to us with a question so that there are no secrets? And then I'd say for parents as well, it's get versed with these different platforms. I was thinking, I'm like, because I am a professional auntie, so I'm not a parent yet, but I'm overwhelmed and I don't even have a child yet. And so it's just between TikTok and I think I had someone say that recently that their child knows about Discord. How many people here know what Discord is? Yeah, exactly. So it's a platform that young people under 10 years old know about. And it's where venture capitalists come and see pitches from different companies. It's where, I mean, it's overwhelming. So I'd say parents, stay woke. Like, learn about the different technology platforms, test them out. It may not be your cup of tea. I know, like, my preference is Instagram. Someone else may be TikTok. Someone else, WhatsApp is enough. It's like, whatever is out there, we'll land here, so I'm going to find out what's there. But I'd say find out every platform that comes up. Put alerts on Google to tell you when a new app is launched. Put alerts on Google to tell you which apps have been flagged. Like, I think there's one called Rubik's or something like that. I think it's a game. I don't know what it is, but it's something that was flagged, yeah, because of, I think it's a game or something. But the things that were happening there, the conversations happening there, like if you're a parent and you're not aware, you'll be left, I mean, your kids will go through things that you can't explain. So I'd say make sure you're looking at these platforms, at least know how to use them. Put those parental controls, even on the TV, even DSTV has programs that you can control. And I think open the lines of communication so that they don't hide from you. I'm like, yes, you are their parent first, but there's that level of friendship you can get to with your child to where you're very open. So I'd say, yeah, stay woke.
Gosh, I think you answered it all, hey? I think that was fantastic. I think where you have the privilege, the only thing I can add to what you've said is where you have the privilege of getting your partnership ecosystem to help you with data literacy, because there's no way you can do it on your own, especially if you're a working parent. You know, the privilege of having schools that do data literacy training, safety training, demand it of your schools, demand it of the people that are supporting you to help you to teach your children about data literacy, you know. So I think that where we can do that, that's going to be a big part of how we galvanize the community to help us to do that. But I think you said it.
Thank you.
Can I add something?
Yes.
If you're a parent right now or a parent to be, you need to be very afraid of the digital space. These kids are smarter than us. I have 2 boys, and my son is 9 years old, and he challenged me. He's like, Dad, WhatsApp is for old people. Use Discord. I had to Google what Discord is. So my 9-year-old is actually teaching me stuff. That means that as a parent, I need to be ahead of him. Kids nowadays listen by observing. So if you're a parent, what kind of energy are you oozing around your children? If you're the kind of parents who is always on phone, always online, these kids observe. And my son is like, Dad, you're just from work. When are you going to play games? So as a parent, you need to understand your kids' digital footprint and their digital skills. My son has been pushing me, Dad, I want to be on TikTok, I want to be on YouTube. I'm like, you're not ready. He's like, Dad, I've shot videos here, there. He's done videos, he's done like an intro. He's like, welcome to my channel. I have no choice. It's their time. So I have to give him that space and guide him on how to document content. Remember, I grew up with no technology. And this generation, as a parent, you must be present. The kind of footprint you show your children, they're actually going to pick it up from you. If you, as a parent, do you have screen time? Like we'll find at the dining table, do we eat with our phones? What time do you get just to spend time with your kids? How many parents go to school just to bond with the teachers? If you want to know your child, go to the school. That's the day you'll actually know his talents, his friends, and everything. So what I'll say is this generation are very smarter than us. It's us parents to actually give them that opportunity, but also guide them on the do's and don'ts. In my house, we have screen time, and all the gadgets have parental control, and each of the kids have have a smartphone and a device. And the shocking thing is, one day I've mirrored their phones to my phone. My son was texting his girlfriend, hey, my dad is not home, you can come play with the dog. Then I see a response like an hour later, hey, thanks for the kiss. I'm like, 9-year-old. So that meant I had to have sexual talk with him, and we really had an open conversation. So as parents, we really need to understand these kids of today.
I also would like to add onto that. Being a parent, I have a son who's 4, and I'm also an appointed parent for a couple of other older kids. And I think the one thing I've noticed is, if you're going to nurture their voice, the one thing that we're lacking on social media, even with influencers, is authenticity. So you find what they want to share, and I think that also happens to be the challenge that teachers are facing in school. Even what comes on a composition is quite fictional. It's not very authentic. And this is from a sit down at a parent-teachers meeting, saying whatever we're seeing on composition is very fictional, or it just talks about things that are on social media. So I think to nurture the voice, number one, we need to encourage them to share authentic moments, and you need to be part of them. Because I've learned that there's this weakness whereby to hush my son, I just hand over the phone, because that's easier. I think that needs to stop, yeah? Because that is one of the problems. Secondly, if I'm traveling with him and I'd want him to take a photo of a mountain, I'd want him to share that, as opposed to just consuming and doing what he's consuming on social media. So I think there's less of sharing what they're experiencing, and there's more consumption of what is on social media. And of course, the influencers come first. So if it's a luxury lifestyle, that's exactly what they're going to see. So I think sharing authentic moments is what we need to do, especially when it comes to encouraging our kids to share, yeah.
Wow, that was very powerful from the lens of parents and explaining, technology, how they are passing it on now to their children and the next generation. So, to you, Kevin, how do you measure impact or the return on investment of influencers? And especially, do we have influencers for social good in Kenya, or have you come across influencers for social good worldwide? Maybe case and examples. Yeah.
I'd want to specifically speak about influencers that I've worked with, and most of them are not for social good, so I feel there's definitely a challenge there. So when Philip brought it up, of course I felt like, I need to do a bit more in that area. Maybe we need to find ourselves a couple of clients that, that are geared towards social good and focus on that. And for me, you've definitely left a mark and a question in my mind about how do we get this influencer marketing, chat, whatever option in terms of content marketing to have some social good to it. So I'll speak specifically regarding influencers for consumer brands. Specifically for commercial purposes. And the first thing you need to understand is that it's very hard to find one influencer that's going to deliver on each of your goals, ideally. So what you'll find is that you need to first of all be very clear, again, on your goal, because we have come across clients that think that this person is going to change the direction of their sales in a day. But that's not going to happen, because some of them have popularity that gives you reach. So that's one of the metrics. So if your brand is unknown, that's one of the ways that you can measure how many people have gone ahead and actually liked this particular post of my brand. So reach is one of them. Another thing is also your audience growth. So let's say you started your page and it's a totally new page, and you had 3 followers. One is you, the second one is a receptionist, and the third is probably your mom. Now, if that grows, because this influencer has come on board, and you can tell that clearly since this particular activation has started online, we've been able to grow our following by 20%. That is one of the other ways that you can measure it. The other thing would be engagement of your audience through things like likes and shares. So if the influencer, for example, had a post that they had to put up, there's ways that you can check on social media whether it's been reshared and how many times it's been reshared. You can even check how many times it's been saved, meaning that people are engaging with it. And that's one of the other ways. And the beauty about all these platforms is that they actually allow you as the administrator to see a back end where you can actually see, oh, this is how many times this particular post was saved when this influencer shared. This is how many times the post was commented on. So ideally, it helps you check the return on investment. There's also the fact that you've got now, there's also other ways that you can go to an extra mile of tagging an influencer to a promotion code. I'm sure you've heard about promotion codes and discount codes, for lack of a better word. So this is where, let's say, for example, you wanted to be sure that this particular followers have come from this particular influencer. You would create a promotion code that then gets tagged to them. And every person that uses that promotion code, it gets tagged back to them. And you can tell which of these 3 influencers I'm using is more value for money. Yeah, pretty much. And of course, tools that you can there's more advanced tools that you can use for tracking the return on investment.
Can I chime in? For me, I think influencers are product-driven. Coming from the humanitarian space, we are impact-driven. So you may be trending, you may have 1,000 followers, 1 million reach, 1 billion impressions, but what is the impact on the ground? Coming from the humanitarian space, at times, I'll give an example as digital humanitarian. We can do a blood appeal, where we do a tweet and say, hey, we need blood for patient X. We get like 1,000 retweets, but no one actually goes and donates. So you find, where is the disconnect? Look at the role of social media in mental health, which is not being tapped in. When you look at the digital space right now, social media has become like a toxic place where no one addresses such issues of behavior change. Like, I'll ask again, we'll have celebrities talking about pushing an alcoholic brand, but you'll never get them to talking about road safety or the impact of alcohol. So coming from a humanitarian space, us, we are impact driven, and this is something which I'll actually challenge the brands. How do you measure impact? How do you measure? Because when you look at the digital space right now, let's say you have 1,000 influencers who are pushing your products. How many of them can go out of their way and just do one post for free? Right now, we're heading to elections. Next year, we're actually going to be, the digital space will be about politics. How many influencers can actually say, hey guys, let's talk about 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll find people will keep quiet until things happen. That's when you see people actually coming out. So that's why for me, I'm like, are they influencers and what are they influencing? Like, if you're pushing a product, what are you influencing? Are you influencing me in terms of behavior change? Are you influencing someone to actually, like a role model? So for me, those numbers and likes, when it comes to humanitarian action, those numbers and retweets don't matter if you don't have behavior change, if you don't have people actually converting. Because social media has become a place where we will focus on pushing a brand, we will focus on hashtags, but we don't focus on the real change on the ground. That's for me where I see there's a big disconnect.
Can I just add on that? Maybe we're being a bit too hard on the local social media. I feel like everything catches up in its time. And I use the example of retail. So what at least I've seen as a social media consumer, but also one who observes business strategies, is conscious buying has become a big thing. So perhaps, again, it's for the brands to define what impact is, right? So we can't just say, can we push impact? How do you define impact? In retail, apparel, retail especially clothes, conscious is a big deal, where we're trying to encourage longevity of apparel. So even the social media influencers that are engaged, the message is about, don't keep buying. You can wear this different ways. And what essentially you're saying in 3 styles to do a dira or whatever is you don't have to buy 3 clothing items. You can buy 1 and style it different ways. You can wear it to church, you can wear it to the beach, you know. That is conscious. So probably it's the brand that's not aware that that's an impact matrix. The other one I've seen, brand Kenya, buy Kenya, build Kenya. Shout out to anyone who has pushed that, because in the worst economic year, last year, we had Kenyans traveling, maybe in part because we were locked in, but as soon as the gates were opened, Kenyans filled our hotels. And that is impact. So the more we encourage people to think impact, not just in the measured, I don't know, maybe you want green something, but even economic, fueling a house, making a hotel not close down, that is impacting in and of itself. Saving water by doing this, like thermal flasks and those water bottles so that you don't have to do plastic, that is also impact. So maybe let's not be too harsh on ourselves. And for those of us in the room who are influencers, you can now begin to think of some of the pitches that the brands are bringing to you within these angles. Green is a big deal right now. Green finance, green economy, we just had COP26. So if it's an electronics company, how much energy are they saving? A lot of them do put those matrices in their goods, so you just probably need to amplify them.
Okay, thank you for that. I'll just have one final question, and then we'll wrap it up because time is up. Does representation have a role to play in finding your voice? We'll have Zumi answer this.
Yes.
To close for us.
Yes. I don't know what's going on with my mic today. Yes. Yes, I mean, from so many different angles. Like I say, from the people who make the decisions in the room, right? If you have a boardroom full of men, a decision comes out of there very different than if you had a boardroom that is representative of society. Many studies have been done. If you read the Harvard Business Review, companies that have more representation on boards make better decisions, have better return on investment, have better performance. They've got better output on ESG matrices. All shareholders look for is the potential of your business to grow further. So they care about that stuff, right? And so we know that that works really well. In teams where you have greater diversity of thinking, your output is so much better than if it doesn't, you know. We know that where you've got in any marketing campaign where campaigns that talk to real representation of societies work very well. Think of the Dove campaign. That campaign took Dove was a cheap brand sitting on the shelf somewhere. Like nobody wanted it. Like nobody would pay a premium for that brand. That idea of transforming beauty, that is representation and what beauty means. And it was on time, and it was insightful, and it's based on where the zeitgeist of culture was going. So those are the kinds of things. And that shifted a whole category, because it didn't just change Dove, it changed beauty category across makeup, across healthcare, across feminine care. Everything shifted from that point because it started with representation of what it is when women started to see themselves differently to how others saw them. So yes, it matters, and it's important for us to deliver business results.
Okay. Thank you so much. So we've come to a close of the session. So we'll proceed to the next session on masterclass, covering consumer loyalty is up for grabs. So many vote of thanks to our panelists, the audience at large, the guests, and all attendees for your participation. Thank you.
Once again, thank you so much to the panel, of course, for that very informative discussion. I'd also like to, at this particular point, just invite up, of course, from Nestle, Friza Waithaka, the Corporate Communications and Public Affairs Manager, to give a vote of thanks on behalf of Nestle for that panel discussion.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I'll just take maybe 2 minutes of your time to first give a vote of thanks on behalf of Nestle Kenya. Thank you so much for all of you that have attended this meeting today. Most important, I want to thank the panelists that we had today. We had our moderator, Caroline Barire. We had Millicent Muigai, Eva Warigia, Kevin Kamau, Felipe Pogola, and our keynote speaker, Zumi Jongwe. Thank you for such an inspirational session that we had. I believe each and every one of us has taken something home. In this session where we were looking at the power of voice, I believe all of us have carried a message home on inclusivity and diversity in our power of voice, brands with purpose, being impactful rather than product-driven, clarity of purpose, nurturing our voices and those of future generations, just among others. Very, very powerful messages on the power of voice. On behalf of Nestle, we really want to thank you for making it for this session, and to just get to let you know that we have been activating a few of our products out there. I'm hoping that you have sampled our Nestle Everyday Milky Drinks. We have the coffee and the tea flavors. We also had the Nestle Ceravita Flakes with milk. It's the only breakfast cereal that you have in this market currently coming with milk, so you only have to add water. And then we have the Nescafe Creamy White coffee. I'm hoping that you have tried out all this and you can check them out in the market today. So thank you very much also to our organizers of the Social Media Week today for giving us this opportunity as Nestle to be able to share our voice with you. Once again, have yourselves a lovely day and a blessed week ahead.